So what we decided to do was we went for all that information. So the name, the age, the date of death, date of birth if we can get it, place of birth, place of death, their occupation before the war, the regiment they're in, the memorial or the burial site, perhaps a photo. And when you look through them for the 77, they have various amounts of information on them. And what was nice was that each kid took, and you can see the workings of it, each kid took ownership of one of the 77, so they felt as though they were working on their behalf almost to preserve their memory. And some you get gold, and others you hit a brick wall. And I guess it's what you do once you hit that brick wall to try and discover their story.
When we brought this project to you and said, let's reanimate the names on the Cenotaph, you straight away got what that meant from a curriculum level, because you knew how that would work.
Yeah.
It exceeded your expectations.
Yeah, it did, to be honest, massively so, because we knew the 100th anniversary was coming up. We knew the changes in the curriculum were coming up. But most importantly, I knew that once these kids wrote their name next to a name on the Cenotaph, they'd take ownership of it. They'd have a reason to do some proper history, and that was to reanimate the life of that person.
Could that be a struggle before that?
Definitely, because it's our kids there's a strong community spirit here. Kids are Acomb kids, and they're not that interested in things out of Acomb. And the first battle you have in history is to get them to look outside of their community. If I can use their community to inspire them to look at global events, then that's half of my work done. So they're engaged the minute they know it's lads from their streets, from their villages, from their community. And having an individual to focus on gives them clarity of what they're after. It's no good just saying research the 77, but what it is you research E.R. Frost and you find his story, and then what we can do is, as we find the information about that individual, we can then look at the global events that they're caught up in. So we can look at the Battle of the Somme through the eyes of that individual. We can look at the recruitment posters, the propaganda through the eyes of that individual. We can look at the commemoration and the end of the war through the eyes of that individual. Did they survive? Did they manage to make it to 1918? What did they do after the war? How was their life impacted after that? And attaching it to an individual, that just breaks down so many barriers and so many restrictions to them engaging with the subject.
Based on what we would have expected, we kind of thought, this will work, this will engage the kids' hearts and minds.
Yeah.
But we were surprised about the academic leap.
Yeah, I mean, the two things you want from your history classes is you want kids in year 9 to do well in their end of year test, and you want kids in year 9 to opt for your subject. That's our core business, for the kids to progress and then to choose your subject at GCSE. Now, we specifically chose this group. It's a lower middle ability with a number of people premium kids in, a number of ethnic minorities in. It was a good sample group to have a look at the impact of this project. In the best will in the world, because I knew they were starting from below average, actually for them to achieve average would have been a good outcome for me. So for them to hit the benchmark figure of 75%, 2 levels of progress at the end of Key Stage 3 in history, that would have been fantastic. What happened in analysing the data is actually they got 90% 2 levels of progress, and 35% of those kids got 3 levels of progress. Now, obviously they had good teaching for 3 years and they've engaged with the subject, but when I analysed the figures in springtime before they did this project, they were average at best. They were somewhere around the school average of 65, so they bumped incredibly. Having done this project, having done the research, and then having done their final World War I assessment, which is the grades that we carried forward, they've excelled. There was only 2 kids who didn't meet the benchmark standard of 2 levels of progress. And also the other fascinating thing is that the options, they chose their options after doing this project, and obviously they've been engaged with history, and this really focused them in terms of, wow, this is quite good, this subject after all, learning about things in the past. It's not boring, it's not pointless, there are stories to be told. And if you look at the figures, 80% of them opted to do GCSE history.
What would you have expected?
I mean, the school average is 50%, but most of that 50% would come from the top sets. So on an average year, I would say probably about 30% of these kids would choose history, because it is academically challenging, and it's not always the most engaging of subjects for these group of kids.
And we got 80 who did it.
We got 80%, yeah. 16 out of 20 opted for history, and they've continued to do it. I checked to see if anybody had dropped out, and they haven't. They're still continuing with it in year 11 now. We
believe that to be, this project had a profound impact on their love of history and has continued to be the thing that's locked into them, isn't it?
I'm 12 years into teaching history in this community, so I have been surprised. The only thing I did different with that class compared to my other classes at the time and in the past was this project. So I still taught the same lessons. I was still Mr. Hardy with all his fantastic engaging lessons, but the one thing that was different was this project. So for me to see the massive increases, I can only pinpoint the increase being largely down to what we did at the end of year 9 in this project.
And our intention by the end of 2018 is to have a suite of art and media reflections that will act as some sort of a digital time capsule for these boys on that memorial.
Yeah, and it's an overused word these days, but to provide that electronic legacy, but also physical legacy around school, so that it's not just the cenotaph that remembers them, it is the school, it is the community, and they are there online, on a wall, not just on that limestone cross on the village green, which, truth be known, many people just walk past and ignore.
If you're interested in P2P visiting your school to discuss how the Cenotaph Secretary project might be delivered there, then please do get in touch via the following email address. Thank you.